Hello everyone, welcome to today's session where we will explore The Free Radio by Salman Rushdie, a compelling short story that delves into the themes of illusion, societal change and the human cost of progress in post-colonial India. To get us into thinking, let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever held on to your dream so tightly that it became your reality even when the whole world around you suggests otherwise? This is the heart of Free Radio, where the protagonist Ramani clings to an impossible dream amidst the harsh realities of his life. By the end of this session, we aim to understand the socio-political backdrop of the story, analyze Ramani's character and the symbolism of the free radio, reflect on how Rushdie critiques modernity and its promises. Coming to author introduction, Salman Rushdie, born in 1947 in Bombay, is one of the most celebrated and controversial writers of our times. Educated at Cambridge, Rushdie blends magic realism with sharp socio-political commentary. His works like Midnight's Children, which is a Booker Prize winner, and The Satanic Verses explore identity, migration and the clash between tradition and modernity. The Free Radio is a part of his short story collection East-West, which bridges Eastern and Western narratives. Rushdie's style is marked by vivid imagery, irony and layered symbolism, tools he uses masterfully in The Free Radio to question the price of progress. Dear students, let us talk a little bit about the historical background. In the story, Rushdie makes reference to real historical events that took place in India. The narrator has the following to say about Ramani's new friends. In quotes, they all wore armbands of the New Youth movement. Quotation end. This was the time of the state of emergency. The emergency was a period from 1975 to 77, during which Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ruled by decree. It was declared by Indian President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad due to internal disturbance. The emergency was one of the most controversial periods in Indian history. It was during this time that Sanjay Gandhi, the Prime Minister's son, launched a campaign propagating forced sterilization, which forms the main theme of our short story. Let us dive a little bit into the summary. The narrator tells the story of Ramani, who is young, good looking and rides a rickshaw he inherited from his father. He is seduced by a thief's widow. The narrator disapproves of this relationship. We all knew nothing good would happen to him, while the thief's widow had her claws dug deep into his flesh. But the boy was an innocent, a real donkey's child. You can't teach such people. The narrator had a vested interest in snatching Ramani out of widow's clutches, because he used to know Ramani's parents. The widow is described as an attractive and vicious. She is 10 years older than Ramani and she also had 5 children from her previous marriage. She is poor as the thief didn't leave her any money before his death. The narrator tells the story of how Ramani and the thief's widow met. One day, Ramani rides his rickshaw into the town. The thief's widow is in the baniya shop And here you observe carefully, the narrator is insinuating that the thief's widow is a prostitute. And to put it in his words, I won't say where the money came from, but people saw men at night near her Ratipati shack. Even the Baniya himself, they were telling me, but personally I will not comment. These are the words of the narrator himself. The thief's widow and her children catch Ramani's rickshaw. From here onwards, the real story started. The narrator implied that the widow wants to prove that she can afford a ride in the rickshaw even though her children are hungry. The narrator thinks that the widow then decides to seduce Ramani. After that, Ramani and thief's widow are seen everywhere in public. They started roaming freely. The narrator is glad that Ramani's mother is dead, because otherwise, because of these antics of Ramani, her head would have hung in shame. Ramani gets into the bad company. He starts drinking liquor, that too illegal liquor, in the back of Irani's canteen. The narrator tries to persuade Ramani to stay away from his new friends, but in vain. He is no more listening to the narrator. Ramani's friends wear armbands of the new youth movement. The narrator disapproves of them, and he also hints at beatings up in which they might be involved. Ramani has no armband, but his new acquaintances are exerting a very strong influence on him. The armband youth always say that Ramani is very attractive and handsome and he should be a film star. You know, this flattery is nothing but designed to con Ramani out of free drinks and money at cards. And the widow is only making the situation worse by reinforcing Ramani's dreams about becoming a film star. The narrator once overhears widow flattering Ramani in public. From this day on, the narrator had a feeling of impending disaster. The next time the widow comes to the Baniya shop, the narrator decides to get involved for the sake of Ramani's dead parents. The narrator uses his social status to force the widow to talk to him, and he directly tells the widow that you should stop seeing Ramani. And for that, the widow responds in the following way. Let me tell you, Mr. Teacher Sahib, retired, that your Ramani has asked to marry me and I have said no because I wish no more children, and he is a young man and he should have his own. So please tell this to the whole world and stop your cobra poison, as she herself said. From then on, the narrator takes less interest in Ramani's affairs, as he thinks that this is a lost case, and Ramani is a lost case, he can't help him anymore. There are more interesting things happening in the town. The local health officer has parked a white caravan in the street. This vehicle is guarded by the armbands youth, and this vehicle, you know, this is used for sterilizing men. At this time, Ramani starts dreaming about receiving a transistor radio as a gift from central government in Delhi. Who is not attracted by a free gift from the central government? Everyone is convinced that Ramani makes this up due to his predilection for fantasies. The boy believes in his dream and he seems to be happier at any other point in his life. Soon after, Ramani and the widow, they both got married. The narrator accosts Ramani to ask him if he has been to the caravan. Ramani implies that he has been to the caravan because he is in love with the widow. And for this, the narrator says, "My idiot child, you have let that woman deprive you of your manhood." And for this, Ramani replies, "It does not stop love making or anything. Excuse me, Teacher Sahib, for speaking of such a thing. It only stops babies, and my woman did not want any children anymore. So it is all now 100% okay. And also, it is in national interest." Ramani adds that his gift of free radio is very soon arriving to him as a thank you gift from the central government. And the narrator is not telling Ramani that this scheme of free radio is abandoned by central government many years ago, because there is no use in telling him. He is no more in a stage to listen to all these things. After that, the widow is seen rarely in town. Ramani, on the other hand, starts working more and more. We'll see that why he is doing this in the coming lines. Every time he rides through the town, he puts up his hand up the ear and mimics radio broadcasts. And the community is almost fooled into thinking that Ramani has the real thing. Ramani continues to carry that invisible radio, but he seems to be very strained from his imagination. The narrator had divined that Ramani had poured into the idea of the radio all his worries and regrets about what he had done, and that if the dream were to die, he would be forced to face the full gravity of his crime against his own body. To understand that the thief's widow had turned him, before she married him, into a thief of a stupid and terrible kind. You know why we came to this conclusion? Because she had made him rob himself. And let us come back to the story. The white caravan is back in the town. Ramani waits for a few days, hoping that these government officials will bring the radio to his place. On the third day, he rides to the caravan with the widow. Ramani goes into the caravan alone. After a while, there are some sounds of disagreement. Now, we can see Ramani coming out of the caravan, and he is beaten to the pulp by his armband friends. One day, Ramani sells his rickshaw and he tells the narrator that he and his family are leaving for Bombay to fulfill his dreams of becoming a film star. After a few months, the narrator receives a letter from Ramani, and the teacher deduces it was dictated to a professional letter writer, because Ramani is illiterate, he can't write. The narrator receives more and more letters filled with stories of Ramani's new life, and it is full of excitement. These letters are full of excitement. According to the letters, the rickshaw rider's talent was discovered, and now he lives the life of a rich film star. The narrator says they were wonderful letters, brimming with confidence, but whenever I read them, I sometimes read them still. I remember the expression which came over his face just days before he learned the truth about his radio, and the huge mad energy he had poured into the act of conjuring reality by the magnificent faith out of the hot thin air between his cupped hand and his ear. Let us talk about the key themes of the story. First key theme, let us look at the first key theme, that is illusion versus reality. Ramani's unwavering faith in the radio mirrors how marginalized individuals cling to state propaganda. Here you should understand, my dear students, state means we are talking about government. Rushdie critiques how governments exploit hope to enforce control. For example, the sterilization campaigns that are done during this state of emergency. And let us talk about second key theme of the story, that is modernities versus false promises. The free radio symbolizes modernity's allure, technology progress and escape from the poverty. Yet it is a hollow promise, leaving Ramani worse off. And here Rushdie questions who is truly benefiting from the progress. And let us talk about the third key theme in the story, that is victimhood and agency. Ramani is both a victim of systemic oppression and a participant in his downfall. His naivety highlights how disenfranchised people are manipulated into complicity. And let us talk about the fourth key theme of the story, that is symbolism. And in this we have again three sub themes. Let us talk about each one. First symbolism is about the free radio. Here the radio is representing nothing but the government's control and the seduction of modernity. And let us talk about another symbol that is in the story, that is sterilization. Literal and metaphorical erasure of the poor's future. You know, sterilization means depriving the man of the manhood. In the same way, here it is symbolizing that it is actually depriving people of their future. And let us talk about the theme of the rickshaw. Rickshaw represents Ramani's stagnant life. It is going on in circles without any advancement. Now let us talk about the setting and language of the story. The action takes place in a tightly knit community in India. This language in the story is conversational, which is achieved by the use of rhetorical questions, repetition and discourse markers such as you know. We felt bad for him, but who listens to the wisdom of the old today? I say, who listens? Exactly, nobody. Certainly not a stonehead like Ramani, the rickshawala. But here the person mainly to be blamed is the widow. I saw it happen, you know, I saw most of it until I couldn't stand anymore. The narration resembles village gossip. This is especially evident in the following passage, in which the narrator implies that the thief's widow prostitutes herself. The thief's widow had gone to the bania shop to get some free grains of dal. And here the narrator says, I won't say where the money came from, but people saw men at night near her Ratipati shack. Even the bania himself, they were telling me, but personally I will not comment. These lines represent narrator's hypocrisy. He likes to pretend that he doesn't stoop to gossip, and yet his insinuations are clear enough to say that he is actually interested in gossiping. Let us talk a little bit about the narrator. The story is written in the first person. The narrator is an old teacher who is an important part of the community, And from the words of narrator, we can understand that he plays very significant role in the society. He used to know Ramani's parents personally. The narrator often switches between the singular I and the plural we. It shows that he is actually assuming the role of himself as well as the community's spokesperson. He wants to represent the whole community. That's why he is using the word we often. The narration is unreliable as it is filtered through the narrator's biases and preconceptions. What is more, his knowledge is limited to gossip and what he can witness. Unreliable narrators are fairly common in modernism and postmodernism. And you know that Salman Rushdie belongs to the latter movement. The narrator is particularly prejudiced against the thief's widow. The fact that he never addresses her by her own name reveals a lot about narrator's view on gender. The widow is only defined by her disreputable dead husband. You know that the widow's name is never taken in the story, but she is always addressed as the thief's widow. That means here narrator's view is that women are not independent beings. The widow was certainly attractive, no point in denying that, in a sort of hard, vicious way. She was all right, but it is her mentality that is rotten. So here we are seeing that she is attractive outside, but inwards, is she really attractive? This is the question, my dear students, you have to ponder about. 10 years older than Ramani, she must have been 5 children alive, 2 dead. What the thief did besides robbing and making babies, God only knows. But he left her not even 1 paisa. So, of course, she would be interested in Ramani. The narrator also safeguards conventional morality by frowning on the fact that Ramani and the thief's widow are seen everywhere else shamelessly in public places, and I was glad that his mother died, because if she had lived to see all these antics of Ramani, her face would have fallen off from shame. The fact that the narrator is a teacher is significant. The story is didactic in tone. It shows the fact, or it signifies the fact, that the narrator is a teacher. The narrator wants to lecture the reader about the importance of listening to elders and dangers of succumbing to the fantasies. So, dear viewers, let's conclude the story in a nutshell. The free radio is microcosm of Rushdie's larger critique, how grand narratives often mask exploitation, how Ramani's tragedy reminds us that dreams, when weaponized, they can become tools of oppression. As we reflect on this, let's ask ourselves one important question, that is, in our pursuit of modernity, what traditions or truths are we leaving behind? Thank you for listening.